What is up, guys? Welcome back to another stream. And let me know if you can hear me, if the audio is working. And today I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to react to a PPP loan scam that a whole gang did. I think it was like 11 of them, and they stole over $4 million. So if you've never watched my channel before, I work as a regulatory compliance analyst for a consulting firm. So essentially, what we do is I focus on financial crimes, things like this, right? So I'll give you an example here. So if someone was using a bank in order to cash money or do money laundering, the bank is gonna flag it eventually. They'll catch it eventually. You're not gonna do that forever. When they catch it, they hire consultants in order to investigate, in order to find suspects. Right? The suspects are gonna be it might be someone who's using stolen identity and things like that. So that's what we investigate, and we also investigate like the losses and things like that. So that's essentially what I do. I work in regulatory compliance. I do it in consulting. So I've worked with a lot of banks. I've worked with a lot of financial institutions, like institutions that allow you to trade, stocks and things like that, crypto. I've worked with a lot of those. So that's what I'm going to be covering. That's why I saw this video and I wanted to cover this because it looks really interesting. I watched a little bit of it. I won't lie to you. I watched a little bit of it. So it's not going to be my first time watching the entire thing. And I thought it was really interesting. And I wanted to watch this with you guys and react and kind of like give you some insights as to, some of the things that we look for. And I believe that this video was, or the whole investigation was done by the Fed, which is why it's like a federal case. So I don't know their process of doing things, but I'm pretty sure it's the same as a consultant would do. And I'm also most positive that the investigation might have came from, a bank itself. So usually what happens is a bank is going to figure out that, oh, this person might be scamming us, right? They're not paying their credit card bills on time, or they're just depositing, $9,000 right under the threshold of $10,000. There's whole measures they have in order to catch those things. And when they do, they hire consultants, or maybe they have an internal team that investigates that. And when they catch it, and they're gonna forward it to the Fed, right? They're gonna forward it to. I'm gonna show you the department that we, forward everything to. In order, like, if we find something, evidence of crime and a suspect. Let me go ahead and share my screen here so you guys can see what I'm looking at here. I can figure this out. Okay, cool. So all the work that I do, if I'm on a case where it's like fraud related, or a client that's fraud related, essentially, we investigate and we'll figure out if there are any suspects that we can, identify. And if there is, then there is what's called a SAR narrative, right? It's like it's escalation to send it to the Fed, right, in order for them to investigate. So I'm pretty sure this case came from like a bank that they were using to cash. They were using cards, and the bank said, hey, this looks like it's a whole organization that's doing this. So we're gonna leave it to the feds because it's gang related. It looks like then the feds finish it off. That's what I think happened. I don't know for a fact, but I do have the criminal complaint and the affidavit here, essentially like the actual records from the agent that was building a case on them and things like that. So I'm not gonna read this. We're gonna watch a really exciting video because I don't want to read all of this. I went over some of it, and before I even get into the video, I want to show you a couple of things here. So here you can see that they're using. We're gonna cover this in the video. I'm gonna explain exactly how they're able to use text. This like website screenshots. I can see social media images. You can see more social media images here. You can see it's more images. There's more stuff than images. Let me see. Let's go down, more images. And we call this open source searches when you're doing an investigation on this. And just to be clear, I don't work for the federal government. I work for a consulting firm that does work like this for financial institutions. Let's see here. You have a bunch of social media images. That's why you shouldn't post stuff on social media. You see all these things here. You have, I believe they quote some like text in here and things like that. And you have like other images here where they can identify people based on how they link them. But this is the criminal complaint and affidavit that's in here. Now we're gonna go straight to the video here. Let me see if there's any questions here. All right, great. All right, so let me know if you can hear the video itself. I don't want there to be like an echo or something like that. Maybe I should turn it up a little bit. Maybe. All right.
These young men are innocent until proven guilty. But god dang, as you will see, they were going hard in the paint. So remember to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel so you can catch more of my content on financial fraud and stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. Alright, let's get right into it. Now, I'm far from a gang expert, but the Wu Gang, as far as I know, was formed in various neighborhoods in Brooklyn, and they really blew up when the late Pop Smoke from
So this is an actual gang. So it's not like, some like internet scammers that are, just take season an opportunity to like, steal from the PPP loan program. It's like an actual gang. So that's what they're trying to
Canarsie
describe
blew
here.
up in the music scene. For that reason, the Woos are usually associated with drill music, but they definitely gets it in the streets as well. They are known for regularly going at it with their ops, the Chos, and regularly bodies are dropped all over Brooklyn in the name of gang beef. Some notable names that have fallen victim to this war are, of course, Pop Smoke, and then you also got Nick Blicky, T. Wu, and Nas Blicky, who was recently shot in the face apparently and was rumored to have been killed, but it later came out that he was in critical condition and recovering. So with that,
So I'm only familiar with Pop Smoke here. I've listened to some of his music. He has really good music. But everyone else, I'm not really familiar with them. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard Pop Smoke music. It was pretty popular before he passed away.
being said, during the peak of the pandemic, this specific group of Woos turned their eyes to fast money fraud, and their preferred method was New York State unemployment fraud. According to the 51-page indictment, between March 2020 and October 2021, the defendants submitted nearly 1,000 fraudulent unemployment claims using stolen personal information of other individuals. They would then have key bank unemployment cards sent out in the names of these victim individuals to addresses that they were in control of. During the peak of the pandemic, PPP.
All right. So I want to do a little bit of explaining here before we get into the entire video. Okay. So I want to briefly explain how people can, scam this way from an investigative point of view. So usually how this works is, so this video, they were applying for PPP loans and they were giving them on cards, and they'll go cash those cards on ATMs in order to get the cash itself. All right. So how this works is, they're not going to be able to apply with their own identity, but right, because you only have one identity. So they were stealing other people's identity, and they were using what's called PII information, which is personal identifying information, right? So your personal identifying information would include things like your first and last name, or first, middle, and last name. It would also include your social security and your date of birth. Those are like the three major things that are on your personal identifying information. So your name, your social, and your date of birth. Those are gonna be like the core things that make up your personal identifying information, where they're gonna say, "Oh, that's you." But on top of that, if you're signing up for websites and things like that, there's communication needed. So obviously they're gonna need your phone number, right? Most things you sign up for, they need your phone number, they need your email, they also need your home address. So the way that you catch these people that are scamming is, they can use your PI information. Maybe it was leaked or it was hacked, and maybe it was sold on, someone hacked it and sold it to them. The way you can catch them is through the email, the phone number, and the address. Because if they're receiving something for using your information, like they were receiving credit cards, they can't use your actual address because it's going to be delivered to your address. They can't use your phone number because the bank or whoever they're scamming is going to call your phone number in order to verify. They can't use your email because the bank or whoever they're scamming is going to email you with confirmation details. So they have to use their own, or they have to make up a fake one, right? So this is how you catch them. So the whole investigative process, if you don't catch them on the PI information, sometimes they'll use the wrong social security number. That's pretty easy to catch. But if they have your name, social, and date of birth, then we have to rely on the address, your home address or mailing address, email, as well as your phone number. So that's where you can catch them when it comes to that. So here, what they described in the video, they say that this was, they were using their own home address, which makes sense because they wanted those cards delivered or sent to their home address, right? So they can get them themselves. So that's where they got caught. So I think there's like more. It's a pretty short video, but there's more things that got him caught. So I'm gonna explain how those things work hand in hand with investigations. Let's see here.
PPP and unemployment fraud were OD taken advantage of due to fraudsters figuring out how simple it was to use stolen or synthetic information to fraudulently obtain these funds that were intended for people in need. Once they got these cards, en masse, they would go to various ATMs daily and withdraw thousands of dollars. In this case, they applied for over 20 million in unemployment funds and successfully obtained over $4 million.
All right, this is insane. So usually what the scammers do, they will do the most they can. They're not trying to do the bare minimum. They'll do the most they can. So in this case, they tried to withdraw $20 million, but they only got 4 million, which is a lot of money, But, maybe for like, for in the eyes of the government, it's probably like, like a tiny, a fraction of like what they gave out to people, but that's still a lot of money.
Sheesh. I guess the sauce was out within the Woo clique on how simple this method was, and boy oh boy, did they exploit it over and over and over again. They would acquire the full profile information of various individuals from underground fraud networks on Telegram and the dark web at the lowski. I'm talking about $100 to $150 a pop. Telegram.
All right, so this is super interesting because sometimes you wonder, usually when you meet like, entry level scammers that are just trying to do this maybe one or two times, what they usually do is they'll use maybe, their brothers, their aunties, identity, or a neighbors or someone that they know. They'll use a couple of people that they actually know, right? That they can maybe they do social engineering, which is essentially if you're familiar with hacking, they have like a social engineering type of hacking where you talk to the victim and you get the information from them. You have to be really creative, obviously, but maybe they do a little bit of social engineering. They know your social, maybe they, steal it from you, and they know your name, your address, because they know where you live, and they use that. That's what like the one-time scammers do. But you have this is obviously a gang, right, that was trying to make a lot of money. You see, they applied for like $20 million, right? They were trying to withdraw $20 million. But usually what they were doing here is they were purchasing that information from the dark web, or I think they say the dark web or deep web, something like that, or on Telegram and these different platforms that, people that hack certain databases that contain that information can sell it on, right? So if you ever are like, throwing away your mail, make sure you scribble the part where your name is, your address is, or if your date of birth is in the mail, make sure you scratch that off. Anything that ties you, that ties your ties to your personal identifying information, make sure you get rid of that, because that's all they need. They have your other like, the more the better for them. So if they have that information, they're going to be able to apply for anything. So what a lot of these scammers or hackers they'll do, they'll maybe hack a database. You probably heard a lot of this on the news, and they sell that information. Maybe it's on the dark web, or maybe it's on platforms like Telegram, or it's on whatever platforms they use. They sell it on that. So these people were, I'm pretty sure at first they started doing people that they knew, and then they ran out of those people. They had to purchase more identities where they have to check out, because if you're applying for something at the bank, your name has to check out, your date of birth has to match that name, and your social has to match that name, right? So if you purchase those three things, you're good to go. You can put whatever email, whatever address, whatever phone number on there. So it looks like they were purchasing a bunch of like these identities, from these different services or platforms that allow them to do that.
Conversations were found in their phones showing how they purchased these profiles on a regular basis. Yo, bro, I need New York pros with a DL ASAP. It's 150, my dude. Okay, send the address. They would purchase the profiles using cryptocurrency, and within a couple of days turn that $150 investment into thousands of dollars. Now, I'm not about to...
So usually how this works is they buy it for 150, and they apply for the PPP loan, maybe they get approved for $20,000 or $30,000, and they go withdraw that much, or however much they're allowed to withdraw on that day, right? So it's like you get a return on your investment, or you get a return on your investment right away without even waiting, without even the time factor on that investment.
The boy out of death, but the indictment is filled with each of the 11 defendants running the same exact method and successfully cashing out with ease. But I guess the Woos were blinded by the fast money and didn't think about how they were leaving behind evidence all over the place of the frauds they were pulling. And of course, they did their own parts in snitching on themselves by flashing their stolen money all over social media. You see, this group of extremely intelligent fraudsters completed these claims using stolen information, but they sent the cards directly to their own home addresses. Now,
So that's what I was saying. You can steal someone's name, social, and date of birth. It can be approved for credit PPP loan, but when you use your address, that can be linked to you. I mean, I'm gonna cover how they're able to link those things to you, the actual suspect, instead of the victim themselves, and how they're able to identify who the victim is, right? Because it's easy to say, oh, he applied for it. It's his name, it's his social, it's his date of birth. It's easy to say that. But I'm gonna explain after maybe halfway through this video how we're able to do to identify things like that.
I want to take a moment to make something clear. I'm not a fraudster, but if I was, before I did any kind of fraud, I would think about how I would hide my trail. And of course, having a debit card that I obtained through stolen info sent directly to my own home address would not be the wave I'm going for. I'm just saying. But these wooskies did exactly that. In addition to that, the feds pulled the records on all these fraudulent applications and were able to track the IP addresses back to the homes of the woos who were pulling off the crimes. Now, I don't even think the feds needed to do all of that IP tracking since the wooskies.
All right, so right here, I want to cover the IP part. So it looks like the feds were tracking the IP addresses, but I'm going to tell you this from a bank's perspective, right? Bank that's getting scammed. So what usually banks use a bunch of software. There's a lot of cybersecurity risk management software that's out there. The most popular is Threat Metrics. It's called Threat Metrics. So what it does is the bank can set certain measures, right? And one of the things that they kind of like have to identify, that's one of the core things, is the IP address that the applications are coming from. So if someone's applying for credit, right, it's gonna log the IP where the application came from. So it's gonna tag the geolocation. It's also gonna tag, I think, yeah, IP and geo. There's also other things as well, but important are IP address and geolocation. So when you see like 20 applications coming from one IP address from the same location, it's gotta like be an alert. Like, what is going on here? Why is there 10, 20 applications coming from one location? And then the IP address can be tracked. That's where the feds come in, right? So you can, whenever we write our escalation narratives that get passed on to the, forgot to show you guys. So this is the department that we eventually report to when we identify a suspect right here. So this is FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. They're the ones that can do the actual criminal, investigation, the actual, pursuing the criminal and the suspects, right? And have the final say, do they go to prison, how much, things like that. They're the ones that FinCEN, so the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I'm used to calling the FinCEN. But essentially, yeah. So that's how they're gonna be able to, once we identify that, hey, this is suspicious that there's 40 applications that are coming from the same IP in the same location. Very suspicious. It looks like it might be fraudulent. So when you forward that to FinCEN, they, maybe give it to the feds or whatever department that takes care of that. And they're the ones that can actually track the homes, right? Like where it's located, and they can really, figure out who's involved, who's the actual suspect, and pursue them. But yeah, so that's how, when you apply for things like for loans and things like that, your IP address is probably getting, it is actually getting, it's actually getting tracked, and they can track how many applications came from that IP. The smart people use like VPN networks, right? Even though some of the software, the cybersecurity risk management is able to identify that this is an IP from a VPN, right? Sometimes they can do that if they have that much of an expensive software, or risk management software. I've used some that just said this is the IP, even though they're using a VPN. Eventually, you figure it out, but sometimes it tells you that, if you have the really expensive one, it tells you, hey, this looks like it's coming from a VPN, because from the same geolocation, if you use this, like, there's like so many factors that go into it that can figure out this is a VPN that's being used here. But yeah, that's why how they were able to get caught, or to kind of link them using the IP address. So we're gonna go back here to the video.
Also use their own personal email addresses on these unemployment applications, and their email addresses many times match their street tag names, such as porterbaby80z at icloud.com, robready19 at gmail, offer3022 at gmail, and of course the big brim Jew at gmail.com. I mean, come on.
All right, so here, like I said before, in the beginning of this video, how you catch them is when they use the phone number, email, and address. So we've already identified in this video that they've used their home addresses in order to receive the debit cards. Now they're using their own emails because they have to. They have to get the confirmation. They have to be able to get the communication from they got to use their own email. And sometimes a lot of dumb criminals or cyber criminals, scammers, they'll use their personal email, right? And their personal email is probably associated with them somehow. And the smart ones usually they'll make like an email that's similar to the person. So let's say if my name was like, Nash Theo, they'll probably do an email like NC Theo, something like that. It's similar to the victim's name, right? Those are the smart ones that try to get really creative with it. But usually people that are doing it once in a while, or the dumb ones, they usually just like, use their own personal email, right? And phone number and address, their own address, right? Without knowing that the bank has the ability to hire consultants that are able to figure that out. And I'll explain how we're able to figure out that this is not the victim's email, that's your email in a bit here.
They should listen to some scam rap at first and at least use the VPN of some sort. But nah, these woos felt that they were untouchable, so they had no time or knowledge, I guess, in hiding their traces. In addition to this, like many other genius fraudsters, they went straight to the ATMs themselves to withdraw the money from these fraudulently obtained cards. And I know many people feel, well, everyone is wearing a mask now. I could easily hide my face. I guess that might work, but you see, these wooskis, of course, had to flash their stolen money all over social network. The feds were able to tie the images that they got from ATM surveillance, getting clear images of their tattoos, clothing, and jewelry. They then linked it to their social media accounts where they flashed all the bread they stole running up New York State unemployment. The indictment is filled with images from the Wooskies' Instagram accounts flexing and flashing stacks of money, taking trips and renting flashy cars, just living the life and documenting all the use of their illegally obtained money on the social net, making the jobs of the feds so easy. One of the woos, Mr. Roman.
All right, so before they go into the self-snitching, I believe that's what they call it. But so here, how are we able to, let's say someone used your name, your social, your DOB, and they use their own address, home address. They also use their own phone number and email. How can we identify that you are actually not the suspect, you're the victim? So these companies, banks, financial institutions, there's software out there. So this is it's called Accurate, LexisNexis Accurate. This is the most popular one that they use. There's obviously a bunch of different ones. This software, essentially what this website or software does, it gathers all your information, all your public information, and private sometimes, which includes your social, your name, your history of addresses, your neighbors, your history of phone numbers that are registered to you or connected to you, the email addresses that are connected to you that you've used anywhere on the internet. They're gonna be on there. Your voter registration, your what else? What else have I seen? Your licenses. If you have a fishing license, hunting license, if you are a doctor, you are approved to have access to like any medicine or drugs. your what else? Trying to think of what I said. Your they have access to everything. Pretty much anything that you put out on the internet or that's like approved, they can find it on there, right? And it's pretty cheap to get that software for it. Like corporations, and they pay for like every file that they pull. So what they do is they use the social. I'm gonna tell you the blueprint here. So first they'll use your social, right? If we put in your social in here, then if you put in your social here, then what name pulls up using that social? So we're assuming that they use your true name, true social, and true date of birth. They put in your social, it pulls your name and date of birth. Okay, cool. That's cool. They pull up the report. The report is gonna show. We're gonna go down to phone numbers. We're not gonna be able to link your phone number that you used, the phone number that the scammer used for the application using your information. We can't link it to your file. Like, okay, cool, phone number, that's great. When I go into the email, we can't link the email that the scammer used using your information. We can't link it to your personal file. Okay, cool. Let's look at the address, the history of the addresses that you've stated. We'll look at the scammer, the address that the scammer used, and look at your history of addresses on your file. You can't match it. Now, that's already suspicious if it looks like that. Now, what's the next step? The next step when we do that, if there's a business involved, there's also other steps. But it looks like in this case they weren't using any businesses or using stolen identities. But the next step, we call it as consultants. Banks will do that. Open source searches. That's where we can search for your name on Google to look for any news if you are been arrested, criminal. Also, the file LexisNexis, it shows criminal record as well. But when you search, when you do an open source search on Google, any platform, it's gonna be on Google to access any website, or if you use Firefox or whatever you use, that's an open source search. You're just doing your own creative investigation. So we can look for your name. Yeah, nothing showed up here. Then we Google your phone number. Usually, your phone number is gonna be tied to you, right? The scammer, but it's not gonna be tied to the victim. So let's say I do a Google search of your phone number. I just type it in Google, and it says phone number registered to this person, but this person is not the person that applied, was the victim. I'm like, oh, that's a little suspicious. Okay, great. Now I can search your email, right? If I search your email and it pulls something that's connected to you, the scammer, but it's not connected to the victim whose name you used in social and DOB you used, date of birth you used. I'm like, that's a little suspicious. And then we can look up the address, right? The address, we can go on Google Maps and actually look at, and compare the two. So we can see the location. So as consultants, when you have that information, sometimes some will use social media, but it has to be really convincing, right? If you're using someone's social media, people do things on social media that are like, they're just having fun or they're joking around. So you can't really, incriminate someone using that unless you can prove it, right? So once we've gathered this investigation, obviously it's gonna be more in depth if it's like it's gonna be more in depth if it's a lot of things, you know, if there's a lot going on. But this is just like the skeleton of how the investigation works. Sometimes it takes days, months to investigate one case, especially the ones that involve a business. But once we have that basic information, we're like, huh. So we looked in the applicant, the person that applied for this in the records, and it looks like we have the right name, the right social, the right date of birth, but the email doesn't match the person's record. The phone number doesn't match. The address doesn't match any of their addresses that maybe they've lived in the past and where they live right now. Okay, that's suspicious. Let me go ahead and look this up on Google. So when I looked up the phone number in Google, it's connecting this phone number to someone who does not have the same name as the applicant. When I looked up the email, it's connecting someone who does not have the same name as the applicant. When I looked up the address, that is not where the applicant lives, right? So now that's already suspicious. Now, once we have that, we have to draft a narrative, right? Which is essentially especially explaining your investigative process. Hey, I looked up in this system. I used this system to look this up. This system looked this up, and it didn't it matched what was on the application, and it didn't match what was on the application. And based on my open source searches and my expertise, it appears that the this is the victim and this is the potential suspect. So you never want to call someone a suspect because you don't really know, to be quite frank, until the feds have to investigate it, like in this case. But you call them a potential suspect. This person is the potential suspect, and this is their phone number, potential email, potential address, right? So now that's the entire investigative process of this, and you have to go through, like, some of these cases can take a while, especially if it's an application that stole someone's identity, and then maybe they stole a business identity. So they're using your name, they're using your PI, your personal identifying information, name, social security, and DOB to apply for credit for a business, right? Or so you have to investigate the person, see if the person is real, if there's a victim, a suspect, and you also have to investigate the business to see if the business is real or if the business is a suspect or a victim. So yeah, let's just finish this real quick, and I will answer the question that's in the chat. So you can see that in this video, they were posting it on social media, like how they were spending the money. If you find information like this during your investigative process, you can link this, right? But you can't be certain. You can be like, it appears that the money that that might have been gotten from this was used for this, based on these social media posts, based on the date and the date that the transactions were made, things like that.
Mean Brown was even seen wearing the same exact outfit in an Instagram post as he was wearing when.
And also, as consultants, you don't have access to things like surveillance, like what the feds are able to do. That's like after the feds actually investigate this, because as a consultant, like a private consultant, you're not gonna be able to, like, go ask for, like, security footage at banks and ATMs and corner stores. You're not gonna be able to do that. So that's one thing that private consulting companies do not have. Even banks themselves, they're not gonna have private investigators or internal investigators go to a corner store or a bank, be like, can we look at the footage so we can do. They're not gonna do that. This is all the feds doing this here.
When he withdrew money from an ATM. I mean, come on, y'all. Stick to rap and only rap, cause y'all even suck at shooting. Many of the Wu shootings I hear about, they hit every single innocent bystander and never hit their own target. I'm just saying, I digress. Now they're doing fraud and just giving themselves up, just sloppy work all around. And talking about rap, they even made a music video called Trappin', where they referenced their scamming methods, and of course, many of them also appeared in this same music video to show off the fruits of their hard work. One line that the indictment calls out was, "It was me and Porter, we was hugging the block. Unemployment got us working a lot." Sheer bars. Unemployment got us working a lot. Real clever. But they also could have just said, "Hey, come arrest me, I'm doing unemployment fraud." Whatever. With all that being said, the feds built their case, and I can only assume that they're gonna plead guilty, because I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I think so I think this is pretty much it. So excuse me. So you can see that at the end here, they were, like, just telling on themselves in, like, music. So as a if you're working with a bank as a consultant or internal investigation, these are things that you can use to build a case in order to forward to the to the authorities, to the Fed, in order for them to investigate that. So you want to get as much information, as much evidence to prove that someone is a suspect, and also to prove that someone is a victim, right? So if you can find a video of someone claiming, something that it looks like they did, you can kind of like tie that in. So you just can be like specific, be like, this is this because I think they did this. It's more like, I believe. It's more like, it appears that, that's how you write that report. Yeah. So as well, it's like, one time I was working on a case and I was trying to prove that someone is a victim, right? So I had to dig into lawsuits that had happened to them way in the past in order to prove that they were connected to this one company, right? So when you do the open source investigation, which is not linked to any databases that give actual information, you're just like freestyling, trying to link things that didn't make sense from the actual databases that you can get actual information. You have to be as creative as you can, and when you draft that narrative, that writing of explaining your investigative process, who's a suspect, who's a victim, and it's just like you have to be really, really. It takes a lot of critical thinking, because it's easy to think that if it looks like a scam, then this person, the victim, that's it. Sometimes it's like an honest mistake, right? Sometimes it is, rarely it is, but for the most part, it's gonna be criminals trying to do that. So you have to be able to prove that they are. And usually, what banks would do, or even take it a step further, what banks usually do if they see, people that apply from the same IP address, they'll just block it. They'll put it on a block list where any applications from that IP address are declined, or any applications using this name, if they're using the same name for all the applications, they're declined. Any application using this social security number, they get declined, right? This is called a block list. So some of the work that we do as consultants is, let's say someone used my information and they applied with like 100 applications, and the bank said these are fraudulent, and they block that IP. That doesn't affect me. They block my name, my social, and my date of birth. It's on a block list. What if I wanted to get a loan or apply for something from that bank, right? You're not gonna be able to do that, from at that point you're not able to do that because you're on a block list. So when you have consultants or internal investigation teams investigate that, they might have to clear your name. So you've had like some false positives where you're like, hey, I think it looks like this person was actually the victim. They should not be on the block list, just in case they want to apply for credit or for something else, right? So it goes both ways. So it takes a lot of critical thinking and a lot of like problem solving, and also a little bit of like confidence, because it's hard to like point someone out as a criminal and write a whole 2-page narrative explaining how they're a criminal, right? And you can use information like their background history, if they've had, some of the things we use, if someone has been arrested for fraud in the past, right? You can link that in, okay, based on the history of what they have done, it appears that they're, likely to do this, right? You use like a lot of information. You have to just utilize all the information that you can get. But yeah. So that was a really interesting video. I saw this earlier and I was like, hey, this is a super interesting video. I watched like half of it. I was like, let me watch the rest on stream, so I can do something that I actually do for a living and explain it. Let me know if you guys have any other videos that are related to like fraud, financial crimes. So I deal with money laundering. I deal with terrorist financing. I deal with fraud, like credit card, all kinds of fraud. But mostly, it's anti-money laundering and terrorist financing. But if you have any questions in the chat, just put them in the chat, and I'm gonna answer those in a bit, or right now actually, since this video is pretty much over. But yeah. So the first was, I had a question. When you get paid for a consulting job, is the money paid to you hourly, or is a lump sum upfront? So if you I work for one of the big four consulting firms. So if you work for those firms, the client is paying directly to the firm itself, right? So how it works is, let's say the client is like, hey, we need a team that's going to investigate these applications to see if they're fraudulent or not, right? The consulting firm would negotiate all the deals. It'll negotiate all the everything that's going on. Now, when it's your job to get on the team, you get selected to be on the team. Now they negotiate how much it's gonna cost, and also how much each consultant cost. So that's why if you have certifications, you cost more. If you have master's degree, or just high credentials, or if you're an expert at something, you cost more. So the firm, or the consulting firm you work for, might charge the client $200 per hour for your work, and then they agreed to 8 hours a week. Oh, I mean, not a week, like let's say like 50 hours a week, right? That's what they have agreed on. That's what the client is gonna pay for. So the client is gonna pay the firm, and the firm is gonna pay you. Now the firm has to make money off of you, right? It's a business. So if the firm is charging the client $200 an hour for your work, the firm might pay you a solid $80 an hour. And they make huge profits off of you. You make a pretty good amount of money as well, um yeah, so the firm is gonna make money off of you. So that's how it works. So the firm, it's like you have like a regular job, pretty much, right? For if you work for the big firms, it's like you have a regular job. You have your base salary. That's how it works. Like your base, you get paid that regardless of if you're on an assignment, if you're on a project or not. That's your base salary. But on top of that, there's also like, bonuses if you did well on the project. There's also raises and things like that. Those are like the additional pays. But essentially, the firm is never gonna negotiate underneath your base salary, right? If your base is I'm putting it on hourly terms, like to make it more sense. Let's say your hourly rate is, the firm says we're gonna pay you $40 an hour, right? And then they put you on an engagement. I can promise you that they negotiated like maybe $200 an hour, right? So they're getting paid. They can pay you your base salary regardless of working a lot or a lot less. You might get paid more because of bonuses and things like that. But essentially, you're not getting paid directly from the client. Maybe you get paid every 2 weeks or twice a month. That's when you're gonna get paid. If you work for a big firm, um, so it's never paid directly to you, and it's never paid as a lump sum amount. So it's like a regular pay, just like a regular job, where you have your base salary and then all the perks. The firm gets to enjoy however much the client agreed to, and you get paid your base. And then sometimes you get a lot of overtime as a consultant because you never know what might happen. Yeah. So if you guys have any other question, I just joined what's going on. So we're watching a PPP loan. I was reacting to it. If you, I don't know if you can forward, reverse the live stream, but we're watching a Wu Gang PPP loan. They stole over $4 million. So I just broke that down since I've had a lot of personal experience, investigating these things. So I wanted to do like a kind of like a little breakdown of how these things work and give you guys like the skeleton or the framework of how, before it even gets to the feds, it comes from the bank itself or the financial institution itself. That's where it comes from. And in order for them to do that, they either have an internal investigation team or they hire consultants to do it for them, right? So a lot of these banks or financial, and let me stop saying banks, a lot of these financial institutions, they have things that have flagged as potential, scam. So this is probably what happened here. So they did the first applications. The bank was like, "Huh, this is a little scam. It's scam," and then they keep doing it over and over and over again. So the bank just keeps flagging and flagging until like this is coming from the same IP address. We need to stop this. And then they get their internal investigation or consultants to do further investigation, which is what I broke down throughout this video. But yeah, so that's essentially the skeleton of this. And the Fed will do, we do the narrative, we break it down, and they do the actual investigation. So how much you typically get paid? So this really, it's like you can't really have like a range for any consultant really, because it depends on the skills that you have, how much you're willing to negotiate. So it's easy to come in at not disclosing how much I make. It's easy to come in at like $80,000 a year, and then the next year you go up to like 89. The next year you go up to like like 90. It's easy to jump up that fast, and there's also like really good bonuses if you are, it depends on the firm itself actually. If you work for a firm that champions social development and things like that, all this and that, and you get involved, maybe you're volunteering, you're recruiting, you are, you're just doing like things that they value, you might get a bigger bonus. So it's easy to get like a really, really big bonus on firms. That's why like you can't really tell how much someone gets paid unless they really tell you how much they get paid, which most people don't like to disclose. But so with the firm, it's like your own career, right? If you're in consulting, you have to like really speak for yourself. You have to like negotiate for yourself. When it comes to how much you get paid, you negotiate for yourself, right? And it's like, oh, like I want to get paid this much because I think I've done this much work and this much work and this much work. Or you can say this person is getting paid this much, and I feel like we're doing the same amount of work. You can literally negotiate like that in a firm, and it'll work. If that's only a big firm, not like small firms. I work for one of the big four, and there's so much leeway when it comes to negotiating how much you actually get paid. But yeah, so if you can negotiate, so that's why it's so hard to tell how much a consultant typically get paid. You find someone who is your age, same level, they get paid maybe $120,000 a year. You get paid like 80,000. You're like, huh? how is this possible? Then maybe you talk to network with them, you figure out, oh, they have the certification. Oh, they were able to negotiate a little higher than than I did. Yeah, so you can't really tell you're not able to figure out how much someone typically get paid. If you go on the app, I think it's like I forget the name of the app where all the consultants are on, and they talk about how much they get paid and complain about it and maybe brag about it sometimes. So do you prefer to work alone or in a team environment? So as a consultant, you are gonna have to work in a team. But for me personally, I prefer to work, I would say both, mostly alone because I think I get the most work done. And in a team, if we're like brainstorming on how we can solve a problem or how we can, how we can approach something, it makes more sense to work with the team because you have these different perspective, different problem solving minds that are able to like come up with different solutions, and you can try all solutions until you find one. But after that, I want to go work on my own, right? Once we have the solution. But yeah, but with consulting, you're gonna have to work with teams, especially if you work for a big consulting firm. You have to you're gonna go to like every assignment. You're gonna have a different team. That's different people that you have to like that you have to like learn how to work with, and that's every assignment. You might have like the same people once in a while, same two three people, but most of the time it's gonna be different people. Next one, I meant how much did you get paid hourly based on your experience, education? Didn't mean to try to expose you or put you on this spot. No, no, you're good. You're good. So based on like I had about 2 years of work experience in a bachelor's degree in finance. When I saw I was over the like the over the typical college student that's just getting out of college. What I've heard, I'll tell you what typical college students. It also depends on the city that live in. Obviously, if you live in New York, you might get paid $90,000 right off of college. If you live in San Antonio, Texas, where I live, you might get paid 60, $70,000 a year. Right? It all depends on the cost of living. Um, but how much more did I get paid based on hourly based on experience and education? So based on my education, I can tell you my first ever job was like probably like 50K or was it 50K? No, it was 47K. That was my first ever job. It was not in consulting, but I went to consulting. I was able to double that, more than double that. That's not too specific or too off, right? So I had 2 years of work experience, right? And I had that bachelor's degree, and I was able to more than double that. I think that's pretty specific. Not specific, but like it should give you a good amount. You have 2 years of work experience. You have, I had quite a few certifications. I have my Excel certification. I had my Python. No, now I have my Python. Like a certification that shows that I know how to and actually know what I'm doing or something like that. Um, but yeah, so the more experience you get when it comes to consulting specifically is what, because they have to sell you to the client, right? Think about your firm. The client is like, hey, we need analysts that are able to do this, da, 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 da. And your firm is trying to sell you to the company. Oh, we have this guy. He's certified in this. He went to this college or he has a bachelor's degree. Previously, he worked in this field or he did this. So if they're able to just sell you to the client, they're able to sell you to the client, then you're good. So you gotta have those skills that they can use to sell. So do you plan on working in finance until retirement? I like finance. Eventually I want to start a business. I don't want to work. I enjoy it very much. That's why I make videos on it. Maybe I also like creating content online. I've been off of work, so that's why you've seen a lot of videos on my channel. If you see a lot of live streams almost every day, I like creating content like that and really educating people because I feel like there's just like a disconnect between the actual finance world after college to what they teach in college or what you might expect. So I talk about it a lot, but probably, yeah, I want to work in finance, whether it's like, being a COO, CEO, that would be really great. CEO for a mid-sized company or small company. I don't really like working for big companies. So like huge, like, you know, huge global. No, I don't want to do that. I want to go to a mid-sized company or startup, be COO, CFO, because I've gained a lot of, maybe go to a bank. That's where a lot of people that work where I work in regulatory compliance, they usually go to banks, be VPs of, compliance stuff, and manage that. So that would be great. I don't want to do analysis and investigations until retirement. But yeah, I would like to stay in finance, and maybe start a business that is focused on finance as well. That would definitely do. That would be great if I could do that. So here, do you think consulting is a good long-term job? What jobs in the finance field? So consulting is, it's not a good long-term job that you want to do forever because it's gonna get exhausting. You're jumping from, especially if you have to travel to client sites and things like that. Eventually, you want to have a family, you want to have your kids, you want to have things like that. So you don't want to be doing that. It's gonna get tiring. It's fun if you're in your like me, right? I'm in my 20s, so it's might be a little fun if you like the traveling part of it. But once you try to settle down, it gets tiring and old. And then after a while, jumping from project to project to project to project, it's gonna, so once, after a while, you just don't want to learn, right? Let's say I hop from this project, I go to the next project, and this project, I have to learn how to use this software because that's what this company uses or the client uses, and I have to learn that, and I go to the next project, it's a whole new learning again. So eventually get to an age or point where you are tired of learning, so you just figure out, what if I just worked for a company that was not consulting, where I just deal with one type of company, one set of data, right? So yeah, so I wouldn't consulting. So a lot of consultants, actually, I'll tell you this: a lot of consultants usually exit within 2 to 3 years. So they go in as like an entry level, they go to senior, then they exit to be directors at maybe a bank or a small, like, they go to startups, they go to tech, they go to. So it's a thing in consulting. After 2 years, they start planning their exit opportunities, and they usually, you get paid a lot of money if you're coming from consulting because you have a lot of industry experience. You've worked with a lot of clients on a lot of projects. We have a lot of knowledge. So so it's like worth it to exit consulting because you mostly double your pay, and you have negotiating power, especially if you work for a prestigious consulting firm. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's not really good for a long term, but it's good to, like, have industry knowledge of, like, what's happening, how can you solve this, I know how to do this. So it prepares you for a management position. If you're gonna go to another company, you're gonna be able to know, oh, that's the problem. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. You could do this. Why don't you use this? Why don't you call this person, email him, and figure that out. Right? That's what it prepares you for. But you don't want to do that long term because it gets like really tiring. Um, and then the next part of the question was, what old jobs have you had in the finance field? So I worked as a financial analyst for an insurance firm. That was right after college. So I worked as a financial analyst. I worked in financial accounting. Then I was a supervisor. But then before college, I worked as an accounting coordinator for a startup company. That was my senior year in college. And then I worked as a financial analyst intern. I was an intern for a huge insurance company. I was under the VP of finance, so I learned a lot from him. Um, but yeah, those are like, oh, it was essentially in financial analysis and a bit of accounting, and then as well as like maybe management when I was a supervisor for, like, 5 6 months, and then I moved on to consulting after that, just to get a lot of more like management experience and problem solving experience and being able to figure problems out. Next one is, do you have other passions aside from finance, like art? Uh, so outside of finance, I like to go fishing. I used to skate a long time ago. So I go fishing. I go hiking. Actually, I go hiking every weekend. I'll go get a good hike. What else do I do? Uh, that's about it, really. Maybe I do need to come up with more passions. Actually, I need to do that. I need to come up with more passions. But yeah, so I like to go fishing. I like to go hiking. Those are the two main things that I actually do: fishing and hiking. What else do I do? Uh, that's it, really. Damn, that's crazy. But I do work a lot, and I don't plan on working this much forever. Maybe when I stop, I'll actually have some passions. Did you ever have to travel in your consulting job, or do you have to pay for your own travel? Yes, I've traveled once. It all depends on the client. Some clients they're like, we want to see you on the site, so you have to go to the client site. They might be in a different state. Some clients are like, oh, you can remote connect using Amazon Web Services, or you can you can work from home. So I've had a lot of work from homes or remote connect. So I'd be at the office, just remote connect to a client that's in New York. But for the paying part, you don't have to pay for anything. You can expense everything. The firm pays for everything. If you work for a really good firm, one of the big four firms, they pay for everything. So you have your corporate credit card, your Amex corporate Amex card that you charge everything, and they just pay it off. And you can even take clients to dinner if you are at a level where like you're talking to clients. You can take them to dinner. You can expense it. You don't have to pay for anything out of pocket. Um, the firm covers it. That's pretty much all the firms. Like if you work for any of the big four firms, you never have to pay for the hotel. You don't pay for the travel. You don't pay for the food. Obviously, they have their limitations when it comes to things like food, right? You can't go like just go ham and there's also limitations how much you can spend on a client, how much you can there's the limitations, but you never have to pay out of pocket unless you are one of I think there was like some consultants arrested for using expensing strip club expenses on their corporate cards. It was like from different I saw it on the news. I didn't see this in person. I saw it on the news. uh so last one here, unless there's anything else. Why did you start being a supervisor? That's a really good question. So I started being a supervisor because I worked for a mid-sized firm. I was getting paid really well when I got to the supervisor level, and I hit a point where I felt like I wanted to. That was my first job out of college, right? And I was like, I want to do this forever. But I was like, I would hate myself if I never explored what's out there. So I wanted to go into consulting because this allows me to work with any type of company, right? In the financial services industry, any financial institution. So I've worked with banks, I've worked with brokerages, I've worked with all kinds of companies like so far. Right? And that's only the beginning. I've worked with credit card processors. I've worked with so my goal was to do consulting for a little while and then go back to the individual company. And when I go back, obviously I'm not gonna be an analyst. I have all this experience. So this was more to like gain more experience that was aside from that job. Because once you get to like supervisor level or management level with a company, then there's really no room for learning, the actual problem solving skills. You're learning people. It's people management now. You have to manage people. You have to be able to like, oh, you're having a problem with this? This is how we do it. Oh, you don't know how to do this? Go to this person. It's like you have like a bunch of people coming out to you like, hey, this happened. You're like, okay, email this person or ask this person or let me handle that, right? So that's where I was at, but I wanted to learn more of those technical skills, and I could only learn those in consulting, right? Because it would make no sense for me to go from being a supervisor or management level on a single company and then go to a lower level in another single company. It doesn't make sense. I can only go up from there. So I had to go to consulting where you have to like know so many technical skills and you learn so many technical skills based on the project. Did you get sought out by recruiters still, or have you always? Yeah, I actually get those a lot actually. And the consulting job that I got, it was a recruiter that reached out because they're opening a new office where I live. So they're like, "Hey, you look like a good candidate." I was like, "Oh, let me see what is it?" They're like, "Oh, this could align with you this way, this and that." And then they were able to like help me really shape what I wanted to do, and they just made it happen. But yeah, I still do get recruiters still like reach out. I just did an interview just to kind of like test out. That's what I think I made a video on this a little while ago. I was saying that even if you love your job, you have job security, you love it, you have to apply to other jobs, right? What at least once a year or twice a year. This is gonna help you determine your market value, right? So if I was getting paid $60,000 a year, right, and I'm really happy with it, it covers everything. Like I could never ask for anything. It covers my bills. I live the life that I want to live. You still have to, if you apply for another job and they offer you $90,000, right? That is your market value. So you're getting underpaid at the job that you're at. So if you even if the $60,000 is great, just know that you're getting underpaid. The only way you're gonna be able to figure out if you're getting underpaid or overpaid is by getting more offers, right? You don't have to accept them. You can just ask, hey, what is the, what is the budget of this? What is the, um, like what pay can I expect? What is budget? Things like that. And you can get that number and you can use it to negotiate a higher salary. Sometimes you might have to leave a job you love if you want to get paid more, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to get paid more. Uh, money can buy you happiness, but it buys you a lot of things that will make you happy. but uh, but yeah, so you have to understand your market value. That's why you always like when a recruiter reaches out, once in a while, don't entertain it like you're gonna take it. Just say, how much, what I'll tell you what I used to say. I used to say that, hey, I'll get on a phone call and then we talk about my experience and they describe the job position, and then I'm like, hey, this sounds really, it sounds really good. Assuming that is something that's correlated to what you're doing. Like it sounds like something that I'm doing, the direction I want to take. But I really love what I'm doing right now, and one thing that would be unique would be the compensation. Like what are you guys offering? Like what's the offer? And then they'll tell you. And with that information, you're able to like make your own decision. Oh, this company's been underpaying me because I'm satisfied with the 60K they're paying me. Or you can be like, damn, I'm overpaid over here. And you're like, okay, keep the offer. Or you can, if you try to negotiate with your company, sometimes they'll try to match that, right? Because they know they're underpaying you. They understand the market values of their employees. They understand for each position. So they know that they're underpaying you. So usually they'll match it. They're like, oh, we'll match it. We don't want you to live. That's if you provide value. Then they're going to be able to match it. But if you don't provide value, they're like, oh, you could go, then that's when you have to make the decision. You know what I mean? If you want to stay or go get paid more elsewhere where they're paying you a market value. But yeah, so I said you have to really, it doesn't hurt to apply. Do it once a year, even if you love your job, so you can really understand what your market value is. So are any recruiters like scams and promising more than possible? Um, I have never I'll tell you my experience was actually the opposite. I once had a recruiter that promised me a certain amount of money. And then when he went to negotiate, he said I'll try to do more. He got me 10,000 over what he promised me. So sometimes you have to, there's internal recruiters. So if you see a consulting firm reaching out to you, they have a team of recruiters that work internally. But there's also companies that hire these recruiting agencies, right? And those are the ones you might have to look out for. But I've never seen a recruiter that promises more than you can actually get paid, simply because they get paid a commission based on how much you're getting paid. So if they get you a job that pays you 50K, they get paid a certain amount of money from the company. If they get you a job that pays 100K, they get paid way more. So they're usually trying to like they're more realistic than trying to overshoot, or they'll probably undershoot and then maybe negotiate a little more for you, which is what happened in my case one time in the past. But yeah, I've never really seen any scammy recruiters that are over promising, because that's directly tied to how much they get paid in their performance and things like that. So if it's like I've never really seen any like scammy recruiters. Have you experienced burnout from work? Yes, I have. I have. That's why it's important to take time off. In consulting where I work, without exposing the firm, uh, I don't know this. We have unlimited vacation, so unlimited time off. There's no, 2 weeks or whatever. You can take as much time off as you want. That's what's really good about this. Um, so yeah, I have. So that's when you have to find those hobbies like going hiking or fishing, whatever you do. That's when you have to do those things that help you re-energize and like what you do again. But if you're a young person, I mean, it's easy to get burnt out, but you have to just keep pushing. You have to go reset and find something that allows you to reset. Whether it's like a hobby, whether it's like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's going out once a week. You go out, grab some drinks, and and kind of like be around music and things like that. You have to figure out the thing that resets you. Maybe you need a weekend of just sleeping. Maybe you're indoors all weekend. That would definitely help you. But yeah, you're gonna experience burnout, and I experienced it 2 years after. I think a year and a half after I started working after college. It was a year and a half, but the first year was like was like a 100-meter dash. I was just working nonstop. That's why I was able to climb the ladder so fast. I was working longer than anybody, showing up earlier than anyone, leaving later than everyone, getting the most amount of work done, right? Because I had the energy to do so. But over time, you get burnt out eventually. That's why you need a hobby outside of. That's why I make these videos. I like talking about when I talk about things I do. I'm like, oh, I still like doing this stuff, and I go back to work. I'm like, ah, oh, I like doing this. Kind of like a reset. So you need to find like a hobby that allows you to reset and reminds you of like why you do what you do. Sometimes maybe it's the money, you know. You're like, oh, I'm getting paid a lot of money, and it's easy to get caught in that, like where you're getting paid a lot of money, and then you don't like what you do, you're burnt out, and you feel like you gotta keep going. I can tell you guys a secret on the stream here. I took a pay cut to go to consulting. Um, it was a pretty big pay cut that to go to consulting, but I was able to double that after that, after negotiations and things like that. But initially, it was a pay cut. I was willing to do that because of burnout and trying to do something different. You said that you would like to start your own business. What would that look like? What type of services would you like to provide? I don't know what business, but it's gonna be in finance. Maybe someone in something in like coaching, something like that. I have like a one-on-one thing that I've been doing for a while now. Of people that sign up, maybe they are just graduating high school and they need like kind of like a direction. Like, well, I'm doing a finance degree. What classes should I take? These are the classes I have. How do I structure them? Or what internships should I take? I have this one and this one. So I've been helping out people with that sign up on the one-on-one form. Um, been quite a few people, but that's what I've been doing. I like doing that because I've been through all of it, and I have friends that have been through all of it. Maybe something in like just providing like this YouTube, this video, something like this. That would be great. But maybe I have a lot of experience in insurance. I know that is where the money's at. Maybe something in insurance. Maybe go run a firm or a third party administrator, maybe something along those lines. But I don't exactly know what yet. But it's gonna be along the lines of like advisory, like this type of consulting thing where I can just hop on a call with someone and really give them direction. Maybe it's career advice and things like that, or what direction to take, or go back to insurance because I really enjoy that. I really like that. Next one is did you feel lost coming out of university and college? Actually, I did not because I had so much drive. I'd had four different internships while I was in college, and I got out. I already had an offer, and I went straight to that offer. I started working like a month before I graduated. Um, so I wasn't, but I do know that that is actually a feeling that a lot of people have, and I have a video on that actually. I don't know if you are subscribed, but I'll show you the video that I made, what to do if you feel lost coming out of college. Let me see if I can find the video. Damn, I made a lot of videos. Let me if I can look it up. Okay, let me share my screen so you guys can see this. These are some of the videos I've made. Do this if you don't have a job after graduating college. So I feel like a lot of people feel lost. That's one part. They feel lost if they don't have an offer. They have to start applying, and that's because they start applying after college, after they graduate, instead of like a month before, 2 months before. I think I covered that in this video. And then I also have do I regret? These are the staffing agents I was talking about, where the recruiters mostly reach out from. Confused about jobs after college, do this. I think that's a good one. Why you can't find a job. I think this one is a good one as well. Why you can't find a job after graduation. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think those are the ones. I forget the actual video title, but if you scroll through my catalog of videos, I have a video on that. If you're feeling lost after college, it's a common feeling that everyone gets. It's not like just you. A lot of people get that, and that's because they weren't prepared. For me, I was really prepared after college. I was able to, I knew exactly where I was going because I already had an offer, a couple of offers. I had done networking with. I was talking to, one of my internships. I worked under the COO for company, and worked under the COO, CFO of CFO. It was VP of finance, CFO, VP of finance, and I had him on LinkedIn. I had some senior level analysts that I was messaging. They're like, oh, let me know if you want this one. And I had like so many offers like I picked on, so I never felt confused because I was always ready. But I feel like a lot of people are really in their comfort zone when they're in college, and then once they graduate, it's like, oh, what do I do now? And they feel confused. And sometimes you might have a job and you're just confused on the job. You feel overwhelmed. Whelmed. I made a video on what was the topic? It was videos. I think the video was titled oh, the video is called Feeling Clueless with the oh, there you go, right here. Found it. This is the video over here that you can watch
The
if you
last
feel
thing that I
clueless.
wanted.
It's called Feeling Clueless with the Finance Degree. And then what's the other one? How to major in finance. This one I go in depth on how you can really major in finance. Uh how to turn your summer internship into a full-time offer. These are things that I actually did. That's why I had so many offers. I had so many contacts, on LinkedIn ready to offer me a job if I didn't have anything. Um, we have some shorts here. Fastest way to outperform. These are things, fast way to get promoted to financial. These are things that I did. I was promoted with less than a year, to next level analyst. Uh, and I talk about why you don't need a work-life balance. That's why I was explaining earlier how, my first year and a half in 6 months, first year and a half, yeah, I was just work, 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 work. That helps you. I explain why in this video. Um, yeah, and a bunch of other things. It's a pretty good category for anyone that wants to work in finance. I think it's pretty helpful. It's based on my actual experiences, and sometimes it's things that I've observed from friends and other people that work in finance. I have a lot of connections, and I've been fortunate enough to be around CFOs, COOs that were willing to look at me as like, oh my, this the little guy, the little guy, and they're willing to like teach me things. So those are some of the things that I share on this channel, because I can only do so much with that information, right? I can only uh propel myself to a certain level and do I can only do so much with it, and sharing it felt like the right thing to do on the channel. Where do you get your drive from? That's a really good question. I think it's I don't know. That's that's a good question. I would say trying to be great. I guess if you're trying to be great, then you gotta have drive. You can't be, I do have. I'm not gonna say like I'm always like motivated. Sometimes I have my lazy moments. I just want to sleep. I want to watch TV. I want to, but I try to make my time really productive while I have the energy to do so. Because you only get older, and as you get older, you don't want to keep working as hard. You don't have the energy or the motivation. So while you're young or at an age where you're able to do so, um, then do it. That's where the motivation comes from. Wanting to be really successful and really be great at what I do. That I'm like, okay, this is a sacrifice I gotta make right now. Um, and that's gonna take a lot from you if you want to have that type of drive. It's gonna take a lot because sometimes you're not gonna be able to go out with your friends. You're not gonna be able to make it to that birthday party because you have you working overtime. You're not gonna be able to have that Saturday off because you volunteered to take on the project that nobody wanted to take. So that's what it takes, really wanting to be great and not be not to say average is bad, but if you want to be above it, an above average work ethic or an above average what is it drive. So you're probably my favorite YouTuber and the only one that talks about finance, is open and honest. Just saying thank you, making sure you get your flowers. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you both. Thank you. Uh, I think this is the end of the stream. I do have to go eat. But thank you guys for tuning in and asking really productive questions, and questions that weren't just like random questions. You guys did ask some really good questions, and yeah, thank you for that. And I'm gonna leave this stream up here. Maybe I'll clip the reaction or the consulting stuff, like the reaction to the video, and I'll post it tomorrow. But yeah, this one is gonna stay up here. If you want to ever go back to it or maybe share with your friends or anything like that, you're more than welcome to do so. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I hope you guys have a good night. If where you live is nighttime, um, hope you guys do that. Am I gonna be on tomorrow? Tomorrow's what, Friday? Probably. Yeah, I'll probably be on for a little bit, maybe 30 minutes. And if you guys have any topic that you want me to cover, maybe I might do another video reaction, or if you just want to do like a Q&A type of thing. I do have some comments that I'll probably cover on the video instead of typing. I like to just do a live stream or just answer the questions. I think it helps a lot of people as well because it's in video format instead of me responding to a single comment. But yeah, I'll probably do that tomorrow as well around like the same time, 7 p.m. Central Time. You'll be around that time. I'll probably do it for 30 minutes or so. If you guys have any topics, suggestions, you can comment on any of the videos. I do see all the comments, and I may do these live streams based on those comments. Or you might reach out to me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Goat Nash. That's my Instagram. Should be in the description below. But yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m.